Good evening and welcome to the Cheese Room's Shan show. Tonight we are going to be discussing all things naughties. Not things that are naughty, things naughties, as in 00. Super Chats are live, and obviously they're the ultimate way to support the podcast and the only way we'll guarantee your comment to get read out. So joining me today, who better to discuss the decade than three of the cheese room, well, two of the cheese rooms online. We've been stood up. Two of the cheese rooms alumni. It's Davo and HG. How are you both?
I'm doing well. It's been a while since I've been on the show because of sickness and stuff, but I'm doing all right, and I can't wait to talk about the worst 10 years of Levy's tenure at Spurs.
It's your debut on it's both your debut on the Shan show as well. So obviously
it's a debut on the Shan show and not the Shan show, which I've kept saying. So apologies for that. So thank you very much for having me on. And following on from HD's comment, I'm looking forward to swimming through the ocean of mediocrity that was Spurs in the noughties. So I'm all good to go.
I mean, what more could you want than to be sat here on a Wednesday night discussing Spurs mediocrity of the noughties when there's a very, very entertaining Italy-Spain game on Sky? But, you agreed to it and now you're here. So, obviously, you're both well-travelled folk. Where were you at the start of the 2000s? As in Millennium Night, as in the end of the 90s? Where were you both? HG, let's start with you.
I decided that I didn't want to do the River of Fire, which is what London had. I thought, sod that. Which seemed to be a smart decision because it didn't really happen from memory. I went to visit a friend who lives in Norway, and rather than take the obvious easy route of just flying from Stansted for a couple of hours, I thought I'd go by boat. So I took a bus up to Newcastle, and then took a 17-hour boat ride across to Stavanger. So I was just outside Stavanger for Millennium Eve, which celebrating with about 25 people in this small village. It was pretty good.
Sounds lots more fun than what my Millennium New Year entailed. Davo, what about you?
I was in my first stint in Australia, so I was on Bondi Beach. Carl Cox was DJing, and then at midnight, when I said to everyone, well, a plane hasn't landed on my head because there's all this stuff about the Millennium bug and the end of the world. So that's where I was for the Millennium.
I was at my nan's being babysat while my parents while my parents sodded off to the Millennium Dome with my brother and sister. I was 5. So actually I was 4. I was born in 95, so I was 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, I turned 5 in 2000, which makes you both feel very, very old, I'm quite sure.
Well, I always was, but I like New Year's Eve. It's my favorite holiday, if you can have such a thing. But I do like celebrating New Year's Eve in different places. So I've been around. I was in Sydney once. I was in New York once doing the whole Times Square nonsense. But the one in Norway was pretty special, just because I didn't know anyone, didn't really understand much of what was going on. But it wasn't London, which is pretty much all I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, anything but London, hey, HG. Right.
Anything but avoid your parents, I think it was. I heard your dad was a gooner. I didn't want to be in London if he was going to be there. So I was like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, full of the place. Gooners and Scousers, who'd want them, eh? Obviously, this is a strictly nostalgic show. So if Dave or HG mention anything about Enoch in or Enoch out or shake it all about, anytime their forfeit is they will have to sing the Okie Kokie. So if you mention Levy or Enoch, you have to sing the Okie Kokie. Is that understood?
So if I say the L word or the E word at all tonight, I have to do hokey cokey.
Yes, and it's your rule. So don't act as if you're surprised because you put it in the run sheet. So
this is BAFTA award-winning acting I'm doing here.
Right, let's crack on then. We're going to go straight into it with favourite Spurs moments of the noughties. and this sounds like a really horrible game show, doesn't it? But it's going to be good fun. Davo, what are your favourite naughties moments? Not your favourite naughty moments, your favourite naughties moments. Not to get confused.
Well, favourite naughties moments, obviously, the birth of my two boys, different parts of the naughties. So just to say that, obviously I have to say that, and equally as good. In terms of kind of favourite moments, I would say that beating the Goons, I think 5-1 or 5-0 in the semi-final of the League Cup. I was out here. It was a morning kickoff, and I think we drew the first leg there. And then to see them, see us stuff them, and also to see us, and also I think Adebayor and Bentner had a fight on the pitch, and they absolutely imploded. Was just a beautiful, beautiful moment, and that was up there. The Chelsea 5-1 semi we'll talk about a bit later on. But I think my most favourite moment of the noughties was in 2006 season, the Lasagna Gate season, and the game at the library, and it was 1-1, and it was a really tense game, and it was really about who's going to get fourth. And during the second half, Tottenham took the lead. And the Gooners were upset that we hadn't kicked the ball out. Although we'd kicked the ball had gone out and we hadn't given it back to them for an injury. And Robbie Keane scored. And then at the side of the pitch, there was Martin Jol and Arsene Wenger were having a bit of a set to finger pointing and stuff like that. And for me, I think that was a really symbolic moment for us, because I think Martin Jol, really kicked off the kind of renaissance of Tottenham over the last 10 or 15 years, up to a few years ago, because he was someone who had a bit of bollocks about him, stood up for the club. And, at that time, the Goons had like kind of superiority over it all. And there he was he was standing up for us. And Jol was a great character. I really loved Martin Jol. He was a great character. He understood what the club was about. He had a really good connection with the fans. I mean, some of the things that he did, weren't so great, but I think he really, to use a cliche, he really kind of gave us our Tottenham back.
Yeah, I think a lot of Spurs fans of your era would agree. This is basically, we're just going to count how many old jokes I can get in this show. HG, just to reiterate, your favourite naughties moments, not your favourite naughty moments. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I mean, Martin Jol, I mean, that's just it. I feel the same way as Dave. Martin Jol basically was my memory of the noughties. I don't really want to think about anything else. But I suppose I have to say the trophy, the one and only trophy of the noughties would be a favourite moment. Although I never watched the game, so I can't really tell you much about it. I weirdly enough, I flew back to the UK and I picked some random Sunday and didn't think about it. And it was exactly the same day that the game was on. So I remember thinking, bugger, I think I listened to like the first 10 minutes on the radio or something before I got on the plane. And when I landed, the game was over. And I said to my dad, look, don't tell me anything, right? Like, I want to watch the highlights on, I think it was on ITV. That's how bad it was, ITV highlights. And so I waited and I waited, and it was like 11:30, the highlights were on, and I'm like, I don't know what happened. And my dad's sitting there kind of like not trying to give the game away and basically acting all sad. And because he was all sad, I was like, oh, about 10 o'clock, I was like, oh, sod it, just tell me. Clearly we lost based on what you're doing. And do you really want to know? Well, no, I don't really want to know, but, yeah, sure, why not? And then I found out we won. So basically any joy I could have had from watching that game was destroyed. I didn't see any of it without knowing the score. So that's a high moment, I guess. But yeah, like anything to do with Jol, like the interview he gave talking about Mark Clattenburg when he says, can I think you're a prick? Oh, you can think what you want. Okay, then I think you're a prick. That has to be up there with probably my all-time favorite Spurs manager moments. I loved Martin Jol for pretty much the same reasons that Dave said. He was hamstrung by Kamoli. He and Kamoli never really got on too well and kept on asking for a left winger. I think it was Martin Petrov. And Kamoli went out and bought all these players we'd never heard of that didn't fit the system, like Boateng and others who turned out to be decent players, but it didn't work for Spurs. So outside of that early 2000s, I don't remember a great deal. Probably because I don't want to. There's various cup exits. I think we lost 3-2 to Leicester once when we were 2-0 up. That stung a bit. But yeah, no, favourite it has to be. Towards the end when Yale was getting Spurs up there. And I mean, we talked about the semi-finals of the League Cup. We actually played Arsenal, I think, 2 years in a row in the semis. And it was like this suddenly, like these were big games that Spurs were involved in, and it was weird because you kind of thought, well, Spurs' best team is playing against a bunch of Arsenal kids. Let's be honest, it wasn't their best team, but still that fear of losing to them, that fear of like, no, we can't lose to their kids, not 2 years in a row. And so when we did do it, that and then go on to win the final, that really felt like, okay, Spurs are back, and I think it proved to be true.
Just go through some of the happy memories in the comments. So Mickey Tao, yes, I was born in Millennium. I was 4 years old, so I can't really remember it at all. But I know I was babysat by my nan. So there you have it. Evening Niall in the comments. Do I remember the 02 World Cup? It was my first ever football shirt that my dad bought me. The strip for the 02 World Cup, but I don't really remember it, if I'm honest. I just remember having
England was shit. I think that's all you need to know.
They
really.
were bad. They were bad for a lot of it. It was the white one with the red strip, weren't it? Yeah. I remember my dad buying that for me in JJB. God, that makes me feel old. JJB, Jesus. 2-1 beating Chelsea. Remember the 5th of November 2006.
Yeah, watching Robbie Keane put Boularus on his arse before Lennon scored. Chelsea's best ever number 9, that guy.
Yeah, first time beating Chelsea in the league for years. Plus, it was a very, very good Mourinho Chelsea side. We don't talk about him here.
Was that, hey Dave, was that the same Chelsea game when Ledley King did the tackle on Robin? I think it was, right?
Yeah, tackle of the decade. That was amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a Sunday afternoon game. I remember watching it here in Vienna, and it was like we didn't beat Chelsea home or away back then, so it felt like something massive.
That was the first. Yeah, sorry, that was the first win against Tottenham. That was the first Tottenham win against Chelsea since 1990 at Stamford Bridge.
Crazy.
And I got a thing. It's the first home game we beat them since '86 or '87. So a momentous occasion, and Terry got sent off.
Yeah, so 5th of November, Spurs beating Chelsea with Terry getting a red. My first game at the Lane since I moved to England. Sat next to the away fans. Yeah, I can imagine that was quality. When Wenger squared up to Yol, that was always going to be a popular one, I think.
It's funny because like Wenger's not a small guy. He's 6'1", 6'2" himself. But next to Yao, like there was only ever going to be one winner. It was, and I mean, we've never felt at a similar level to Arsenal. And you have to remember, this is not too long after they were invincible and all that nonsense. But for Spurs to be there or thereabouts, kind of like pushing and fighting for fourth. I mean, as much as for Arsenal that would have been awful to lose out to us. For us, it was to even have a chance of Champions League football at the time felt ridiculous. Because only a couple of years before I'd been dreaming of reaching Europe of any kind and hoping that on the final day results would go our way and we'd scrape 7th or something like that. So yeah, for us to be I mean obviously Lasagna sucked when it happened, but for us to be there or thereabouts was pretty damn cool.
Yeah, Phil still remembers Yale calling Gabby Logan darling in one of his post-match UEFA Cup interviews.
You can get away with anything if you've got a Dutch accent and you speak English. I mean, it's Martin Jol. Like if Martin Jol was angry, you knew it, but most of the time he just was charming. It was great.
Yeah, he was a great guy. I know Martin Jol leaving triggers many Spurs fans who evening born to lose. The Spurs Holston shirts were the absolute business at the start of the noughties. Sadly, the team wasn't. And that leads us on to the next section where obviously with every positive memory, there's got to be a few negative ones for the noughties. So Dave, what are your worst noughties moments?
Well, obviously, the first worst noughties moments was August 2009 when Oasis split up. So, that's, hey? So don't just put this together. I woke up Saturday morning, Sky News, Liam and Noel's last fight. I was wearing a Dig Out Your Soul tour T-shirt, and I was in London at the time. I went to Tottenham, Birmingham that day, and I wore my Oasis T-shirt to White Hart Lane, and I was getting some funny looks from people saying you're a bit of a fanboy in mourning and stuff like that. So that wasn't a good moment. There's a long list of bad Spurs moments, and this has been a very, very hard choice to make. So, and HG might have some of them as well. So obviously the Blackburn League Cup final, which we won't go into, maybe we'll get some comments. City in the Cup, 3-0 up, lose 4-3 against 10 men City. Lasagna Gate, which I'm sure we'll dive into. But for me, the very worst moment was in June, July 2001. I'd taken a week off work. I was living with my brother in this 2-bedroom Barratt home. The sun was out. I put the deck chair out in the garden, put my white handkerchief on my head, put a bit of Faithless on. The phone goes from work. All my colleagues around the phone are on speaker. Judas has gone to Arsenal. Right? Judas has gone to Arsenal. And there's this 2-bedroom Barratt home in Friar Barnet exploded with anger. And that was my worst noughties moment.
That was very eloquently put together, HG. How are you going to beat that?
Oddly enough, I don't even think about Campbell anymore. But yeah, I guess that was the noughties. The obvious ones are what he said and what happened in the comments. The City game, losing to them at home. I mean, that, like, it's weird. At the time, you just thought, okay, that's Spurs. That's what we did. We didn't know anything else before then. I mean, that was, I think, before Yol took over as well. It was that season of just before Santini and Yol came in. Negatives. I mean, anything that happened in the first 5 years was a negative. I have to say, I didn't watch the Blackburn Cup final either, so I missed out on that one. But I'm surprised that Dave didn't talk about the change of ownership at the start of the decade. I can't remember who it was that came in, but I'm pretty certain Dave does. And surely he would. I mean, maybe he was excited at the time because it was no longer Sugar, and I'm sure Dave didn't like him either. But the new guy came in with all these wonderful ideas and said how it was an investment company all along. They didn't hide it. I'm surprised. But on the pitch, I mean, some of the players, I'm watching Johnny Jackson week in, week out, probably wasn't a highlight. Nothing against Johnny Jackson, but yeah, you know what I mean. And I just, anything that happened before Yol was bad, and anything after was good. I think that's it. Anything after Yol was good. Anything before Yol was bad.
Bob, big up Bob, Shan, HG. Big thank you to Davo for his appearance on my show on Saturday. It was absolutely brilliant and created much needed dialogue. Yeah, I mean, I feel like like some sort of agent setting Dave up for the big time.
No, I appreciate that, but we were. It was thanks, Bob Spurs. It was really great to be on. We were talking about a subject of a word or two words I can't say tonight. So, but thank you.
Bob, just to update you on the rules, anyone that mentions the E word or the L word has to sing a hokey cokey. So if you want to come on and you want to sing to us all, then you're more than welcome. Okay. Yeah, looking at some of people's more negative memories. Obviously, the City game.
The City game has to be everyone's worst thing. I mean, the Judas thing, going to Arsenal was the bad thing about that. Every Spurs fan knew that Judas was too good for us at the time. No one had ever really, the first big Bosman ruling, it felt like. I know that, I think, McManaman had gone to Real Madrid, but that didn't really care for Spurs fans. But to leave on a free was still pretty rare. But then to go and do that, I think, enough has been said about it. And quite rightly, he's never been forgiven, and he never will be. And to be fair, like had he shown any kind of contrition afterwards, people would have been like, okay, I guess it made sense. But the fact he's been a complete arsehole his whole life just makes it really easy to continue hating him. Like the fact that he went where he went, is probably the least bad thing that he's done. So he is a figure of hate. So maybe we should be grateful that at least the early 2000s had that we have something to remember, because otherwise, I mean, it was poor. Like lucky to get to the fourth or fifth round of the FA Cup each season. The league campaigns were never great. Yet another season of David Blake was a caretaker manager for like 10 months. Like, people talk about going 70 days waiting for Nuno to be appointed. Like, that's just mad. With like, what, we're just going to wait until basically Levy was like, well, Santini's only available.
What? You said the L word.
Yeah, but we're not talking about him. I mean, we're not talking about the in and out of him.
But you spoke. You said the L word. HT, you're gonna have to do it.
Or do the hokey cokey.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Like, weirdly enough, everyone else calls it the hokey pokey. Did you know that?
No.
It's only in the UK. It's called the hokey cokey. Honestly, and I'm not just saying it to get out of it. I don't remember it. I'm 43. Like, I don't sing it with my daughter. So, yeah, knees up, Mother Brown. I've no idea. No idea.
You put
I
your
know
left
how to sing it. I'm not
your
doing it
left
now.
arm out, in, out, and shake it all about, HG.
Oh, well, thanks for doing it for me. That was great.
Did you go to Jesus' first game back at the Lane? Were you there?
No.
Okay.
I went to Sol's first game, his debut, the Chelsea game. I was there for that, but no, I only had a season ticket between 92 and 96, so the noughties are not me at all.
No, well, Judas' first game, you're right. He came on as sub against Chelsea and he scored the consolation goal. He was playing up front, so I went to his first game back, and it was, I mean, obviously very toxic. I obviously don't condone anyone chucking bottles at the Gooners coach and all the rest of it. It's not the right thing to do. So I went to the game, went back. I was living with my brother, and I was on. I used to like ringing up 606. So I was the first caller on 606. And I basically was saying, well, he deserves everything he gets. I don't condone violence, but I don't, he deserved everything he gets. He could have gone anywhere. No. And I put the phone down, and my brother was listening to it upstairs. I said to him, how did I sound? He goes, you sounded like an utter lunatic. So there you go. There's Judas for you.
So now, one thing we've learned from this show is that the usually quite eloquent and well-spoken Davo turned into a lunatic when Sol Campbell returned to the Lane. Yeah, I mean, back to HG's point where he's just an awful person. He's just a bit creepy as well, isn't he? Like, have you seen some of the videos he puts on Twitter where he's like, yeah, makes me feel sick, literally sick in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, like, no, I haven't. I don't know too much about. I don't really care too much about him. Like, when it comes up, some of the feelings come up, but no, like, whatever he does, I'm pretty certain that whatever he does, I will disagree with it. Kind of like the caller. Pretty much whatever the caller does, I disagree with that too.
Wow,
so,
you're equating caller to Judas. Now that is well.
I mean, I don't think callers ever left anyone. But yeah, like it's. Yeah, there are times where Caller and I don't often agree. No way.
I'd love to see Caller versus HG at the Lane, like as a L word special. Centre stage in front of 60,000 people. I think that's something that people would pay good money for. Lasagna game, West Ham in the noughties. Yeah. That was that was not good. Worst moment.
It's funny. Like the West Ham game. I was here, and I didn't have Sky at home, so like you have to go to. Basically, I had to go to a bookies here to try and watch it. But so I had no idea that anything had happened. I just saw us losing. I genuinely had no idea what had gone on. I mean, it's not before the internet, but I guess it kind of was. Like I had no understanding about the whole Lasagna gate and players throwing up and whatever. So I just saw Spurs lose at West Ham and thought, well, that's happened before. Spurs bottling it at the worst possible time. But yeah, like to get that close and to have it in your hands and. I mean, all of the conspiracy theories that went around at the time, that was, again, like, I think all of those things that happened in the noughties made it so that when we did qualify in 2010, which I know it's not this decade, but it really felt like a massive achievement that we'd got somewhere. Because until that point, it was like the dream that's just not going to happen. And, how many ways are you going to get kicked? How many times are you going to finish fifth and somehow never make it? And so when we made it, it was like, okay, now we're on.
Yeah, definitely. Worst moment, born to lose. Spurs getting beat by the Goons in the Cup semi-final in 2001. Gary Doherty scored first, and I dared to dream, but it's the hope that kills you. It was Hoddle's first game as manager. I mean, anyone called Doherty is always going to just be awful, aren't they? So what do you think of that, guys? One up there with one of your worst moments?
I was at that game. I went to the quarter-final against West Ham, where I was in the away end, and the West Ham fans were very keen to share their coin collection with us during the whole game, which was nice of them. And we won that. Rebroff got 2. We walked out the ground, got in the car. Graham was the manager, and we all said that if Graham beats the Goons in the semi-final, and he'd already won a League Cup for us, we have to accept him as the manager. And then about 1 week later, a certain owner sacked him and then appointed Hoddle just before the semi-final, a little bit like the Mourinho-Mason shuffle last year. And to make Born to Lose 1973, and I don't mean to trigger you or make you feel any worse, but in that game, Judas played for us. He wasn't fit and he played, and we went 1-0 up. We was massively against the run of play. And then Judas went out and did this tackle on the left-hand side. He did his ankle. He was carried off. It was his last act for us as a Tottenham player. And from that free kick, Vieira scored. And then they went on to win it. So Born to Lose, sorry about that. But that was my memory of that. That was a fond day as well.
Bryce.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
You're not far wrong at all.
I think Bryce is in Australia.
All right.
Yeah, morning, Bryce.
Doesn't seem like a very English name, right? Bryce. But no, it's absolutely right. That is absolutely right.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
League Cup final 2002 was my worst memory. Got stuck on the plane home for hours too. Of course, it would be Diver stuck on a plane. It weren't going to be anyone else.
What was he flying from Cardiff to London? I bet he was. He wasn't flying somewhere halfway around the world. He was, got on my little jet from Cardiff. I bet he was. But no, it's weird. Like 2001, 2002. Don't ask me anything about it. I didn't watch Spurs at all for those 2 seasons. It's kind of crazy. But I had a job somewhere else, and I was working pretty much on 24/7. It felt like, so I didn't really have time for Spurs in those 2 seasons.
So can I just say to Diver, I went to Cardiff. I got in this thing that's parked in front of the house called a car, and we drove to the game. And then the traffic was so bad. There's traffic into the car park. You had to get a bus from the car park to the Millennium Stadium and do it all back. A round trip of 16 hours, right? It was a shocking day. Les Ferdinand missed a sitter. I then drove home, realised I just employed a gooner who was going to start on the Monday, and then got home and realised I'd left my freezer open the whole day. So everything inside the freezer had been defrosted, all the meat. So that is a bad day. But as long as you got your champagne Bellini on the flight home, Diver, then you'll be all right, yeah?
Bob says, all I remember, it was an afternoon and I was mid-chat up line when I heard the Judas news. I ran out before I could deliver the punchline. I do think if she ever wonders what it was, if she's watching, it was because you're the bomb. Bob, I'm sure she would have loved it. Terry, big up in the comments. There's loads of good comments coming in tonight. Cameron says, I copped a litany of abuse from mate around the Lasagna Gate game. Thankfully, the Ashes deviated the abuse away from Spurs. England has held the Ashes back then. 0506, cheers.
Yeah. I mean, the only summer in my life, and probably that will ever be in my life, where cricket was actually more important than football. I know there was no football that summer of 2005, but the cricket was on. Like, really, everyone was talking about it. People who had no idea what cricket was. That Ashes series of 2005 was was amazing. So we'll do a different pod about that. But that was that was fantastic.
Diver, like Davo said, a car or train.
Yeah, car or train.
Car or train.
I think Diver's helicopter was in the garage that day. He had to slum it on the plane. Yeah.
in standard working people's class as well. I bet it weren't even first class. If it's first class, then he really has nothing to complain about. James, only been a Spurs fan since 2011, so my suffering has not been as great as some. Yes, you're absolutely correct.
So James, this is tonight is all about for you. This is therapeutic for you and what your future lies.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, Dave is predicting Spurs' future under their current chairman. No, it's no. I just like if you started in 2011, that was a pretty good time to start. Yeah, but you miss. You're lucky. You missed some terrible stuff.
Standard. He went standard, and he didn't even get peanuts. Okay, yeah.
Oh no.
Bob.
Shan, you got to read it out.
If you know,
you're the host.
HD's right.
Bob, what you doing? Levy, Enoch, Levy. You put your left arm in, your left arm out, in, out, shake it all about. You do the hokey cokey and you turn around. That's what it's all about. Oh, the hokey cokey.
Are you going second verse, are you?
No, I think you're okay, Shan. You're okay, Shan.
Right,
well
is
done.
that enough? Are you happy? Cool.
Yeah, that's well worth two. I tell you what, if you want to donate a bit more, she'll do the second verse for you. Okay?
Bob, piss off. So, I mean, that was good therapy, and it's probably going to get even worse. We're going to go on to the best signing of the noughties, if there was one. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious who the best signing of the noughties was, but HG, I'm going to come to you first.
Well, the one that instantly comes to mind was Bale. You thought I was going to say Modric, but I didn't. I said Bale. Bale to me. Bale is one of, if not the best player I've ever seen play for Spurs. He wasn't obviously great to start with, but to do what he could do and to score the goals he scored. I mean, granted at the end of the career, but still, to think about financial terms, to buy him for what we did, and then to sell him for what we did. It was a fantastic player and a great buy. So I'll go with Bale.
Fair enough. Bale was my favourite player for a long time, and like I said on the Spurs Greatest Moments show, which was the first Shan show, when we re-signed him last season, I sat and watched Sky Sports continuously for days. And when it signed, and they Spurs Twitter, they did the house emoji, and then they did his free squad numbers. So it was like, it was 3, 11, and then he had 9, didn't he? He had 9 last season.
Yeah.
And I cried. I actually cried when Gareth Bale came back. And I think he was criminally underused by a certain Mr. Mourinho last season. But we won't go into that because we're talking about the noughties. Davo, who is your best signing or favourite signing?
Okay, so technically speaking, Bale wasn't all that good in the noughties for Tottenham. His breakout moment was 2010 onwards. So in terms of people who spring to mind, Dimitar Berbatov was a cracking player. He always, 2 seasons he was with us. He always started slowly, and he ended up with 25 goals. He was a proper Tottenham player. He was skillful, sometimes a bit lazy, and he was a great player. I always had a soft spot for Robbie Keane, despite the fact that he went off twice to 2 of his boyhood fan clubs, Liverpool and Celtic. But I did like Keane. I loved, the old somersault forward roll celebration. That was cool. And he was someone who, despite going off to boyhood clubs, I think he really loved Tottenham, and he's got a fondness for Tottenham now and a connection now. But my number one signing is Luka Modric. I kind of had this romantic thing, but with Luka Modric and Niko Kranjčar, they were going to be our Croatian Ardiles and Villa. But the gentleman from Wales kind of upset the apple cart with that and took really Niko Kranjčar's place in the team, which is all good because he's a great player, Bale, obviously. But Luka Modric, they called him the metronome. he would always get the kind of the assist for the goal. He dictated the play. He was a very skillful player. He, like our D-Les, he didn't score many goals, but the goals he scored were memorable. He got some cracking goals, good volleys. He was a very intelligent player. And I think that it shows what a great player he is. I'm pretty sure he won the Ballon d'Or, breaking the Messi, Ronaldo monopoly. He's gone on to have an amazing career at Madrid, winning all those trophies, and he's still playing today. So he is my number one signing of the noughties.
Yeah, he's just an absolute legend, and maybe not a Spurs legend, but for what he's done, like everything he's achieved in his career, he's a Croatian legend, I reckon.
I mean, if you look at the players that we've mentioned, right, all three of them were bought for decent money at the time. Modric was a fair whack, and so was Bale, and so was Berbatov. But we sold all three of them, and it did progress the club bit by bit. Carrick belongs in there too. To get Carrick for 2 million and sell him for 18. I don't want to talk about financials because you don't want to sell your best players. I stand by that now. But at the time, that was the only way that you could really progress and use that money. And you see Leicester doing the same now, right? They buy players and they sell them on. Maguire's a perfect example. But what's his name? Mahrez, Kante, they do that. So all of those players, some of the other guys, was it James Kingsnorth talks about Super Pav? Yeah, I loved him too. Something about Pav, like he could score with left foot, right foot, headers, and sometimes looked like he wasn't interested. But again, he came up with important goals. It's the goal at Bern that basically got us, made us all believe that we weren't going to drop out of the Champions League at the qualifying stages before we'd even got into it. That was a fantastic goal. The goal he scored to win Redknapp's first game. The goal he scored to relegate Birmingham. I hate Birmingham City, and so that goal was always meant a lot to me. But yeah, Pav, we'd kill for Pav right now. We really would. Kane can play most games.
He's still
but
playing. Maybe we could get him back on a free.
I don't know. Is he like 40 now? He must be almost 40. I mean,
he's playing in third tier of Russian football or something crazy like that. But I just got a news flash from Jack that Brian Hill almost scored for Spain.
Almost.
So, almost scored for Spain.
Well, that's more than he's done for Tottenham. I don't mean that nastily, but I don't think he's really come close for Spurs yet. So I'm glad to see he's doing well because we do, we all rate him, I think. But
we want to see him sort of get firing for this international break and come back to Spurs. Like, yes, I'm ready to go.
How old is he?
19.
So was he born in the noughties? I'm trying to work it out.
I think so.
Right, of course he was. Yeah.
So he's a noughties baby. So there we go.
He's a noughties baby.
Yeah. So is Oliver Skip. So is Sessegnon. Sessegnon's 2002, I think. Or maybe he's 2000. Yeah, I think they're all 2000. Brian might be 2001.
And just on the subject of age, I just want to confirm that throughout the noughties, I continue to be older than Shan's dad.
Yeah. Not quite my mum, though, are you? Not quite my mum.
If you want to think of me as your mum, that's a whole other issue.
I think Shan's mum's got shorter hair than Dave right now, but
probably.
Dave, I did hear a rumour that lockdown may be ending on Monday and you're going to be getting a haircut. We're not going to recognise you. Yeah,
lockdown's ending on Monday, and Tuesday night I'm getting my haircut. Never mind going to the boozer. I want to get my haircut.
Obviously, with every nice thing comes with something not so nice. Worst signings of the noughties. I'm guessing this is going to be a pretty easy one to reel off the tongue, HG.
The worst signing?
The worst signing.
Can Dave go first? Yeah, like anyone in the early 2000s. I can't say Lamella, sadly, because that was the next decade. I'd like to.
That's the L word you can say tonight.
That's the he is Anyway, Dave, you go first. Help me out for a second.
We haven't got enough time to go through the worst signings. In fact, when we get onto the worst 11, I've just looked at my worst 11. They were all signings, right? So, and actually, I'll go to some of the worst signings that are not in my worst 11. Anyone remember what's the name of that? The Mexican Dos Santos. So, for some reason, for 3 years, we decided never to have anyone with a left foot playing on the left side of midfield. Steve Malbronk, Timu Tanio, Danny Murphy, all those great names I can reel off. We never had. So he came for quite a bit of money, the same summer as Gomez and Modric, and he was just an absolute disgrace. Bobby Zamora. Remember, we signed Bobby Zamora. Canute I quite liked, but he never kind of really made it. So there are other names which I will go into on my worst 11, but the worst signing, and this is a lot of thought has gone into it, was a gentleman called Helder Postiga, who we signed for £6.25 million in 2003, which is a lot of money. We bought him off Mourinho and Porto. And to quote Glenn Hoddle, I'll read the quote. Glenn Hoddle remarking, he is a player who will add definite striking quality to our squad and is a young player of proven ability. I'm sure our supporters will enjoy watching him over the coming seasons. He lasted 1 season. He scored 1 goal in 24. And so it was an example of buying a young, promising player for a lot of money who didn't work out. Sounds familiar, anyone?
Yes.
Follow that, HG.
Thankfully, the guests are helping me out here. Yes, we had the 2 Yugoslavs. I think Asimovic was Slovenian, maybe.
Yeah.
And Bunjevcevic sadly passed away Well, not recently, but a few years ago now. Goran. Goran was your left-footed centre-back that everyone didn't want. And Asimovic is only famous for missing from a yard out, I think was his claim to fame. They were bad signings, absolutely. Bob Spur, Kazuyuki Toda. We went through all of those kind of, but Mabi Zela, right? We bought him to play defensive midfield, came on at Leicester, scored an absolute rocket, and we never saw him again. There's one from the noughties that just didn't work out. Sometimes what's worse, when you buy someone and they don't work out, or when you buy someone they play a lot and they're rubbish, because we had a fair few of those as well. But the early noughties, just nothing went well for Spurs. Every single football decision that the owner made seemed to turn into garbage. So I don't know if we learned anything from that.
I don't think we have, if I'm honest. I mean, a lot of things that happened in the noughties resonates with the recent dealings, shall we say. But on to the next one. Best game of the noughties.
Am I allowed the 09-10 season?
No, because if it's the City game, that's
well, it is. Of course, it's the City game.
You can't.
Oh man. What about West Ham away when we beat them 4-3? That counts. That was 2008, I think. We weren't great and they were worse, but that just it's that Sunday afternoon. West Ham need the points. We don't really care apart from it being West Ham. They take the lead 2-3 times. The commentators clearly wants West Ham to win. So when Stalteri knocks the ball into the net, all you hear is this "No!" this anguished scream from the commentator. That will always stick, I think, for many Spurs fans. Zamora scored against us, I think, that day. But I mean, there are a number, but a lot of them, I guess, as Dave said, are towards the end of the decade. I'll go with the West Ham away that game.
Davo?
That wasn't my favourite, but I did like the West Ham game because it was the first game back there after Lasagna Gate, right? So if you remember Lasagna Gate, David Dean found out about Spurs having the food poisoning. He was on the FA. He was also the chairman of the Goons, and funnily enough, the game went ahead. So West Ham were looking like they were going down. They had Tevez Mascherano signed for them, and it wasn't working out for them. And remembering that game, what I loved about it was when it was Defoe cut through and he did the shot. and Rob Green, I think, saved it.
Yeah.
And do you remember it trickled across, and there was Stalteri running in, and that was a beautiful moment. And at that time, we thought we were sending the Happy Hammers down. So that was a cool moment that you recollected there, HG. My favourite moment is when we beat Chelsea 5-1 in the League Cup semi-final, second leg. So from a personal point of view, I was away travelling in 91 and 99, so I never got to see us lift a cup then. In fact, the last time I physically seen us lift a trophy was the 84 UEFA Cup final. So it's all my fault. Sorry, everybody. So to actually go to that game and we qualified and see us win a final, because I was at Old Trafford the year before, and I was there with my old man, late father, with my brother and all that kind of stuff. So it was a great night. And my brother said a beautiful thing to me. He said that, I'm really pleased that you were here to see that. So it's a really nice family memory for me, but also really sticking it to the Chelsea. And then Poirier was substituted with 10 minutes to go, and he was wildly celebrating. And apparently Ken Bates didn't like it, so even better. So that's my best game.
Was the HG was the West Ham game the season they got relegated?
No, I think they stayed up because they beat Man United on the last day. It's one of those ways they stayed up and then had to pay, I think they paid Sheffield United 20 million because they'd broken the rules to stay up. It was all a bit underhanded, pretty much goes with West Ham. But no, they didn't get relegated, sadly. But no, it was just, I can't talk about that Chelsea semi-final because, again, it's in the seasons I didn't really watch. So I've seen obviously Sheringham's rocket from that game, but I never lived it. I don't really know the feelings involved. But yeah, we have to be fair. The decade got better, didn't it? It did get better when we started to look like a decent football club. And let's face it, I would imagine, I think we've been a decent football club ever since. Oh, here's one from Born to Lose. Yeah, that counts. That was November 2009.
I remember that game. I remember I didn't watch it, but it was one of those where I'd sat or stood freezing watching my dad's football team play grassroots on a Saturday, and it was really, really cold. And I got back in the car and we turned the radio on, and the game was on the radio, and you just heard all the goals going in, and I'm sat there like, yes, and my dad's like, fuck's sake. It was great. I think I was I was
14. Yes,
no,
14.
13.
No, if you were born in 95, when's your birthday, Shan? Let's have a quick maths lesson.
26th of May 1995. I expect birthday cards.
26th of May, yeah. That means I know exactly where I was on your 10th birthday, Shan. How scary is that? Yeah, but the 9-1 game, I bring this up a lot, so if you've heard it on the pod, I apologise. The guy who scored for Wigan that day was an Austrian guy called Paul Shan. And a mate of mine here in Vienna used to work for the Austrian Football Association, and he was like the national team manager. So he'd sit on the bench during the games, and he was the guy with all the notes and making sure that which hotels they were staying in. Well, Paul Shan obviously knew that this guy was a Spurs fan, so he gave him the shirt from that game. So my friend has Paul Shan's orange, that awful garish orange Wigan shirt from the 9-1. But it was only 1-0 at half time. That is just mental. Lennon was giving assists. That's how rare some of those goals were. Getting to the byline was what he could do, and then finding someone with the cross he couldn't. But a couple of those goals he found Defoe perfectly. So they're good memories. But I was in the States when that game happened, and I thought there'd been a typo. If I'm honest, I was like 9-1. I'm thinking 1st of September. What are they talking about? And then I had to check 9-1. Yeah. So yes, the 9-1 was a big result, and the 4-4,
7-2 Southampton as well.
Yeah.
4-4. Christ, there have been some great games. There have actually been. John is in the comments. Hello, John.
Oh, sorry.
Shana's goal was a handball.
Yeah, probably. I think he went to control it kind of like this, and it kind of hit him on the arm. But yeah, we'll allow him that one.
And
This
I think
one should.
Redknapp put Bale on about 6 or 7 up because Bale at that point had never been part of a team that won a game. So they were talking about the Bale curse, and that's when Redknapp put him on as a sub.
Yeah, I mean that game was just. It's a game that I don't remember too many games from the noughties from when I was younger because, like I say, I was always out and about with my dad like every weekend. The only games I really
watching Fireman Sam and
I wasn't at 14 years old. I was not watching Fireman
Yeah,
Sam. I don't think I
yeah.
watched Fireman Sam when I was at the age. Postman Pat was one of my favourites.
You were listening to So Solid Crew, Blue,
Yeah.
Goldie looking chain.
Britney Spears, the Spice Girls, you know.
NSYNC. Were they around?
NSYNC.
No.
Yeah, I loved NSYNC. Okay. Worst game of the noughties. Davo, go on.
There's a lot. I mean,
Treat us to the ultimate worst.
Well, I've had to think. This is very hard to think about. Some runners and riders. Obviously, when the Gooners won the league at White Hart Lane and old Judas was there, that was bad. Obviously the League Cup final where Les Ferdinand missed chance after chance and we lost. But I think the ultimate nadir, the ultimate trough of all of this was Stoke, October 2008. Juan de Ramos' last game. Chorluka goes off with a head injury. Gareth Bale sent off. Michael Dawson sent off. We lose 2-1. We are bottom of the league. 2 points from 8 games. That window, Berbatov and Keane had been sold. Fraser Campbell on loan. Pav, who wasn't really doing it. Darren Bent, who I'll get on to talk about later. That was the trough, and that, for me, was the worst game of the noughties.
I mean, beat that, HG.
Yeah, City at home in the FA Cup. Nothing beats that. Not like as much as it's Spursy personified in one match. 3-0 up, one man up, to concede 4 to a team that only has 10 men.
Yeah,
I'm
poor.
sorry. I can't imagine anything worse. I think it would have been on Sky too, I'm sure, because it was a midweek replay game. No, any defeat, losing to Stoke is not great. Going down to 9 men is not great. But any defeat, when you're 3-0 up. Can we talk about the Man United game? Was that the noughties? It probably was, wasn't it?
That's 2000 or 2001. Yeah, 2001.
Okay. So yeah, we're 3-0 up at half time in that game and lost 5-3. There's plenty of Spursy moments from the noughties, but yeah, I can't imagine any result. I know people talked about Zagreb last season being bad, but I can't imagine a worse result than losing to let's be a terrible Man City side. And when they only had 10 men, that 4-0 in 45 minutes at home against a team that have fewer players, that is the worst. Absolutely.
Yeah, not ideal. Not ideal at all. That leads us on nicely to our worst starting 11, or our worst 11 of the noughties. And how we're going to do this is so no one can cheat. Not that either of you would cheat because you're both men of great.
I've cheated before, but I wouldn't cheat at this.
That's nice to know, HG. And neither of you have seen the quiz that's coming up either, so I know neither of you can cheat at that, so that's good.
Well, I've got the official comic book history, so I'll put that away so no one can see that.
Yeah. So worst 11, and we're gonna go. So we're gonna do goalkeepers. Like one of you will go, then the other next will go, and then we'll move on to the next position. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. HG, goalkeeper, worst 11 of the noughties. Sorry.
The goalkeeper. Okay. Instinctively, the worst one I can think of is Sullivan. Who was worse, Sullivan or Keller? I think Sullivan was probably worse. Yeah. So I go with Neil Sullivan. I don't remember the early noughties enough to know who was in goal at the time, but those seasons, Sullivan would have been around then, I'm sure. So I go Neil Sullivan.
So I
Davo?
think Neil Sullivan, his first season, and he was brilliant at the semi-final at Old Trafford. His first season, he was really good. After that, he was Player of the Year. After that, he went downhill. However, I have gone for a controversial choice of Gomez, because when we signed him and his first season or first season half, he was awful. I mean, in that Stoke game, unsurprisingly, he looked scared. I remember him dropping a goal at Fulham. He was awful. So at the start, he had one good the season we've qualified for the Champions League. He was excellent, but the season before that and the season after that, he was shocking. So in the noughties, this season, he was shocking. So he's my goalkeeper. And there's been a lot of crap goalies in the noughties.
He had some howlers as well, didn't he, in the first Milan game? I remember him just dropping some absolute howlers in that. If it weren't for Gareth Bale, God, he would have been.
He got sent off after what, 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
I mean that was the howler of howlers.
Yeah.
But
he can't get a bigger howler for that than a goalkeeper.
He was something, weren't he? Yeah.
It is right. The thing with Gomez is that as much as, I mean, there were a lot of mistakes, and I mean, I say a lot, like more than we've seen in a long time. Like as much as Sullivan and Keller were relatively average, they didn't drop the howlers that Gomez did. And in Dave's right, we paid a lot of money for him. He, knocked us out of the UEFA Cup one time on penalties because he was so good at saving penalties. And I think we all thought, we're going to get someone good here. It never worked out for him, and he went to Watford and had a few good years there, but. It was. I don't know if it was the pressure, if the club was too big for him. Because the season that we qualified for the Champions League, he was. I mean, the saves he made in the game against Arsenal at home were quality saves. He was clearly a good shot stopper. But I don't know. I just I think the reason I have Sullivan worse than Keller is I remember Casey Keller made a save up at Sunderland, and I think Chris Perry. Either headed it back or no, I must have used his foot to get it back, and it was going over Keller's head, and Keller couldn't touch it with his hands, so he kind of jumped and somehow headed the ball onto the crossbar, and then it came down the right side of the goal, and he was able to get hold of it. And I just remember thinking that was really, really just quick thinking from a goalkeeper to realize I can't catch it. I've got to do something. So he was kind of like salmon leaped up to try and hit it, and he headed it onto the ground. I don't know. I've always loved that save, and I don't see it on any compilation. I don't know. It's one of those things that I almost believe never really happened because I don't see it anymore. But because Keller did that, and he lived in a castle in Germany, I mean, you got to love him for that. But Sullivan is the worst.
Yeah. Okay. What we'll do is we'll do the two centre backs. HG. Worst two.
Well, Doherty's one for sure. I can't use him because he was the 90s. I don't want to say Bunyan-Chevich, but I can't even say it, let alone want to. Goran B. He was tall, but he wasn't fast. He was weak. I don't want to speak ill of the dead. It feels weird. Yeah. But he was a ropey centre half. He was never good enough for the Premier League, never good enough for English football, and he got shown up relatively often. So I'm sure there are others I've forgotten, but Doherty was a trier and nothing else, and Goran B just was never cut out for Spurs.
Davo?
Yeah, I didn't include Goran B because I felt a little bit bad about it. But when he moved into midfield, he was even worse, right? So I've gone with the Irish Pele, Doherty as well. I mean, he started off all right when Judas was next to him, but as soon as Judas left, he just went downhill, sharpish. And my other one is, and I think it's an indictment of the recruitment policy that we had in the noughties. We seem to buy a lot of Wimbledon players. So I'm putting in Chris Perry. Didn't rate him. He was there and he played enough to do damage, right? So I just never rated him. We bought him in. I think we bought him in to replace Ramon Vega, and that wasn't much of an improvement. So I think that says it all, really. So those are my two.
Okay, we'll go for the right back and left back. We'll do two at a time, just so I want to get this quiz in. So HG, right back and left back.
Well, wasn't the only right back we had in the noughties Stephen Carr? I don't remember anyone else. No, he would have been nine. I've got a lot of '90s players in my head, not from the 2000s. Stephen Carr was obviously a decent player for Spurs, so I don't really want to say him. But who else was there? Dave, can you help me out?
Yeah, sure. So Paul Stalteri, I know that in the cheese room home that we have a lot of people from Canada, and if you're watching this, hello. But he was from Canada. If you watch the Lasagna Gate season, he was at fault for a lot of crucial goals. That Yol game at the library, he got robbed for the build up to Henri's goal. He was crap.
Right.
And
That's
and Sunderland, Lasagna Gate season, Sunderland were awful. And we drew 1-1 up there. We should have won. And I'm pretty sure the goal was his fault and he missed an absolute sitter at the end. So Stalteri's there. My left back was Maurizio Tirico, who was Gorgeous George's first signing. He played on the left, but he was only right-footed. So every time the ball came to him, he cut in and the attack slowed down. I thought he was crap. So those are my two.
Okay. Left back, Gilberto, the Brazilian wonder who played, 4 games for Spurs. I mean, he'd had a decent career, I think, in Germany before he came to Spurs, but I don't know if it was a cup game. I think it might have been an FA Cup game he played and was awful, terrible to the point. He got subbed. He was so bad. And and after that, we never really saw him again. So he would be mine. When it comes to left back. But yeah, I mean, as people have said, you can't use Stephen Carr as a right back, and I was never saying he was the option. But yeah, Hutton, you could talk about Aaron Hutton, you could talk about Stalteri. I know who it isn't because I really, really liked him, and that's Chorluka. Chorluka was nowhere near our worst right back. I loved Charlie, but yeah, no, let's go with Hutton, despite the fact he was in the side that won the 2008 thing. Chimbonda, yeah, I mean we had lots of average to good players, and so Stalteri was weird because he wore number 7, so you thought, okay, he's going to be this, maybe this attacking right back, and he wasn't. He was just one of those players that can play both sides and not be great at either.
Yeah, that don't sound good, does it? We're going to go with a 4-4-2.
Like Matt Doherty. He was the Matt Doherty of his day. There you go.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's
we have had a lot of crap fullbacks over the years. A lot. Yeah.
I mean, Disco Benny's probably one of my favourites.
What, as a crap one, or you actually liked him?
No, I actually liked him.
No, I'd agree with you. I never had anything against Disco Benny.
I love Disco Benny. We're going with a 4-4-2.
Sorry.
Ben
yes. Oh shit. There you go. There's the wonderful setup I have.
Are you going to say anything?
Are you say anything? Because you were going to talk about Ben Thatcher.
Yeah, no, Ben Thatcher. He was terrible. He was a thug in football boots. Yeah, there was no quality about him. But back when I was a kid, Julian Dix of West Ham was the thug in football boots that everyone knew about. But he was actually a decent football player at times. Could take a penalty at least. Ben Thatcher, no. Absolute £5 million, I think he cost us. No, terrible. One of those Wimbledon defenders that Dave was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, right. Going on to the midfield. We're doing a 4-4-2 just because that was everyone's favourite back in the noughties. So
we'll do all 4 at the same time, yeah?
Yeah, just go for your midfield. HG.
Right. My midfield. So you do realise that I haven't looked at this run sheet and I haven't prepared. I am literally doing it from the top of my head.
All right, Dave, go.
I'll
Dave,
go.
On HG.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Right now, my midfield is a mixture of players who some people think were quite good, but irritated the living hell out of me. All right, and some who are just generally rubbish. Okay, so there's a little bit of controversy here. Ready? So, Jermaine Genius. Everyone's going to go, but he scored against the Goons. He scored against Chelsea. Jermaine Genius. If you had the Opta stats on losing possession, he'd be up there. He disappeared when the going got tough. I appreciate he's on the One Show now. I appreciate that he is a top presenter, but he annoyed the crap out of me and effectively replaced Pedro Mendes, who I liked. The next one, the next one is someone who irritates the crap out of me now, and this is a gentleman who, in case anyone doesn't know, discovered Harry Kane, and I'm talking one of our former managers, Timothy Sherwood. I can't stand Tim Sherwood. A very good mate of mine, Nick Grimes. It was his 40th birthday, and his brother got him a signed letter from Tim Sherwood when he was manager. And I don't think Nick was too happy about that for his 40th. And hello to you, Nick, if you're watching, and Damien even. The next one who HG mentioned, and I was there for his moment of utter ineptitude, was Milenko Asimovic, who Glenn Hoddle, who is my childhood hero. I loved him as a player, but he couldn't recruit for Toffee. He described him as the next Trevor Brooking. So I saw his greatest moment in the Spurs shirt when he missed an open goal from 2 yards against Fulham that went over the bar. He was rubbish. And my final one, who I have mischievously said that Lo Celso's like, but he's not really. And he's part of that Wimbledon recruitment policy. So we sold David Ginola, who played on the left-hand side. We all loved him as a great player. We replaced him with Øyvind Leonhardsson, and that's all there is to say.
Okay.
I can raise one of those players. Central midfield, Michael Brown. What the heck?
Yeah.
Michael Brown was played for Spurs, and it got to the point, like, him and when the midfield was him and Rowan Ricketts, you just thought, oh, maybe Michael Brown's not that bad. But Michael Brown was the Lee Catamol of his day, the Eric Lamela of his day.
Come on!
Hey, if you'd have told me Eric Lamela made a career as a central midfielder hacking people, he'd have had a better career than what he had at Spurs. That was his true calling. That was his true calling. He should have been a defensive midfielder, just running around tackling people and getting sent off every fourth game. But Michael Brown, it was one of those where you thought, Spurs need a player like that. No, we need a quality player like that. And Michael Brown was never really quality.
Yeah, but to be fair to Michael Brown, that was the Pleat caretaker season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we had no central midfielders whatsoever, and King Ledley was playing in central midfield. So in true Tottenham fashion, we had no central midfield players. We bought Brown in the January transfer window, and then we went on to buy Brown, Timo Tanio, Sean Davis, Pedro Mendes, with just loads and loads of central midfielders. So, but Michael Brown's a good shout. Is there anyone else that triggers you, HG?
No, not really. I mean, because it's weird. I mean, I see that Sam has said that Michael Brown wasn't that bad. What are we comparing it to? Like he was bad, right? He wasn't that bad, but he was bad. That to me was that's the one that stands out. And there would be so many in those periods. Like, I liked Tainio, so to me he doesn't really count. But Sean Davis came in, played one season. Mendes came in, played one. Like, they came in the same summer to be a partnership. They started the first few games, and then Santini got sacked, and that was that. Yeah. I think it was that season. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the season before. But Spurs just. 2004 and 2000, like between 2003 and 2005, we were awful, genuinely awful, sacking managers left, right, and centre, buying people in, getting people in on loan from, where was Michael Brown? Sheffield United. I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, these are not Spurs players, but I can't think of anyone else.
I'll chuck in with the loan players. Remember Stefan Dalmat and Paul Konchesky?
Yeah.
This is hard going. Maybe we need to move on before we all cry.
Right.
Live.
You're two up top. Go on, Davo. Knock us out.
Well, there's a big choice there again. You've got.
You're not going to say Darren Bent, are you?
Yeah, I am going to say Darren Bent.
Oh my gosh.
And there's a couple of reasons why I'm going to say Darren Bent. So we bought Darren Bent, and at that time we had Berbatov, Keane, Defoe, and Bent. We had 4 strikers. But Defoe looked like he was going because he wasn't going to sign a new contract, right? So Bent came in. There's obviously the miss against Portsmouth and Harry Redknapp saying that Sandra could have scored and not Darren Bent, which upset him. But Darren Bent always, and I know it's not very nice, but he always had that, like, when he did something wrong, he had that gormless look on his face, right? As if he was not quite sure he was a Premier League footballer on the pitch. And then he's gone on to a media career where he's now like he's an expert on Tottenham. No, you're not, mate. You weren't there that long and you weren't very good, and he cost us a lot of money. And my other striker is a gentleman that we mentioned before, Helder Postica. A lot of money, 1 goal in 21 games, and shipped out in exchange for Pedro Mendes. But there's a lot of other contenders for the worst striker.
Yeah, like I can't put. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten who you're talking about. Postiga is there, but I can't put Darren Bent in there. I think Darren Bent is one of the most misunderstood Spurs players. Yes, we all remember that. We all remember that miss, okay? And it was a terrible miss. But it was also pretty crappy of his manager to come out and be like, just throw him under the bus afterwards. Because I'm sure he felt pretty bad about it anyway. You don't need your manager to come out and be like, well, clearly it wasn't my fault that it was his. No, that's just Darren Bent's record for Spurs, considering he was never really a starter, was not bad. I think it was like almost 1 in 3. And so you had Berbatov and Keane when he signed, and yeah, of course those two were the starters. Bent after the three of them left because Defoe went, and then Berbatov and Keane went. Then you had Bent and Pavlyuchenko, and we played a 4-5-1, and the goal return wasn't that bad considering he never really started. So as much as I think he is that gormless person that Dave's talking about, he's an Arsenal fan, so it's clear he's never going to have an IQ over 60. But I just feel that for what he did for Spurs, we paid a lot of money and we sold him on, I think, for 10 million up to Sunderland or Villa or wherever it was. I don't remember. But yeah, I think Darren Bent, as he wasn't Berbatov and he wasn't Keane, which obviously goes against him. But what he did for Spurs and his record of scoring goals, which is what he's paid to do, wasn't that bad at all.
Okay.
This guy wins. Thank you, Silent Dove. Rashak absolutely was awful. Can you say his first name, Dave? Go on, give us a go.
Gregor's Razajak.
Grzegorz Rashak. Yeah, no, he was rubbish. Was it Derby? And then we signed him for a couple of million on like deadline day or something stupid because we desperately needed a striker. And no, to be fair, Dave, your haircut's quite like his.
Yeah, well, I am an eighth Polish, so that works. So I think that was when Arneson was poached by Chelsea and he was made to work his gardening leave. And his last recommendation apparently was Razajak. So you don't think he was trying to do us over before he went off to the Chelsea?
Well, he obviously was. If that was, I mean, if you were in charge of Arsenal, who would you recommend for him? Someone like Rashak. I mean,
exactly. That's exactly what happened.
He was bad. Bent was not great. He was better than people thought, but the same with Pav. He was better than people gave him credit for. But we had some decent strikers in the noughties, even when we were bad. You talked about Canute was a decent striker. Him and Keane were a decent front pair. Keane was with us for 7 or 8 seasons of the noughties. I think Robbie Keane and Defoe to an extent, but those two are our Spurs' players of that decade, alongside Ledley King. But it's to think that we got in a situation where we had Rashak. I mean, even as a sub. No, if he was sub now when we don't have anyone and we've got a kid on the bench, we would still be thinking play the kid. That's how bad Rashak was.
He was bad.
Right. We're going to rush through the best 11s and then we're going to do the quiz. So rush through your best 11, Dave.
Okay. In goal, Paul Robinson. A truckload of bad goalkeepers. He had 2 good seasons and his third or fourth season wasn't so good. In defence, I've got Stephen Carr. Great for right back, and he was, we've had a load of crap right backs. He was very good player. Central defence, Ledley King, and then Michael Dawson, because Michael Dawson was on his own, he wasn't that good. We had King next to him, he looked good. And then Disco Benny. I love Disco Benny. He didn't start really kicking into the 2010s, but he was very cool, and he was someone who actually just saw football as a job, didn't really care about it. He was just like, yeah, it's a job. So I liked him. And we had some crap left backs. Midfield, I thought you were very unfair to Aaron Lennon before. He did his cross. He wasn't a get to the touch line and cross it over, but he did some great crosses in. Look at that Bale goal at Stoke. That was a cross from him. Crouch at AC Milan. Good player. And then you've got Luka Modric and Michael Carrick in the middle. Carrick wasn't there for that long, 2 seasons, but a great player. So I put in someone I'm really quite fond of, Simon Davis. So I know I've got 2 right wingers, but Simon Davis is a good player. He beat a lot of good beaten players, good prospect. He was good. I liked him and got some goals. Up front, bit controversial. I've left out Defoe because I think Berbatov is a better player. and Berbatov and Keane. So I've got Berbatov and Keane up front. I think over the space of 2 seasons, they got about 80 goals between them. They were a great partnership, really understood each other. And it was a bit controversial, but Defoe I've left out. That's my best 11.
HG?
Not too many changes from that. Robinson is the goalkeeper, obviously. I preferred Gianluca. I'll say it again for you, Bob. I loved Charlie in the 2000s. It was Gianluca was a defender's defender. Like, he had no pace, and yet he never got beat for pace. That to me tells you what a good defender he was. I loved Gianluca, and he and Lennon worked really well together down the right. Left back Christian Ziege. World Cup, Euros winner, World Cup final with Germany. Manages a team here in Austria, so I'm a bit biased. But Ziege was a quality left back. Great goal, great free kick goal against Arsenal in 2002, I think. Centre backs King, obviously, and not Campbell. King and Woodgate. I think Woodgate was a better defender than Dawson. I love Dawson, but if you're going on quality, Woodgate probably is up there. Modric, obviously, in midfield. Bale. I don't care if he only got good in 2009, 2010. Bale, he fits the criteria, so he's got to be in the team down the left. Let me think. Berbatov and Keane up front, obviously. Not Simon Davies, not Matthew Etherington. I don't know what you're thinking there, Dave. My favourite story of Simon Davies is apparently he got spotted on the underground wearing a Fulham shirt that had Simon Davies on the back. That to me is it's a brilliant story. I have no idea if it's true, but I read that and thought, okay, that has to be true. Please let it be true. Lennon, as much as I didn't think he had much of an end product for a winger, he was that kind of. He was a team player. He gave
you off your seat.
Yeah, well, he gave Redknapp's side, the balance that it needed, right? We had Bale on one wing, Lennon on the other. Bale could beat a man and score goals, and Lennon could hug the right touchline. That was pretty much what he did. But you got obviously that goal against Chelsea will go down in folklore. But I think I'm missing a midfielder. I don't really. I mean, Carrick and Genus to me were basically the same thing. Just kind of pass it sideways and off you go. But no, I'll just leave the one in midfield and we'll go with that.
Lovely job. Right. We've got a quiz to finish off the show today.
Cool.
If it works. Hey, here we go. And note how I haven't actually put the name in this question. On what day did Alan Sugar agree to sell his controlling share in Spurs? Was it A, the 21st of December 2000, B, the 20th of December 2000, C, the 20th of December 2001, or D, the 21st of December 2001?
Okay, well, I'll go 50-50. I know it's not C and D. So we'll narrow it down. We've got Silent Dove saying B. He thinks it's the 20th of December 2000. Dave, obviously you had a big night out that night. So what happened? Tell us, what day was it?
I'm going A.
Okay,
HG,
I'll go. I'll
lock your answers in.
I'll go B then, just to be different.
Okay. It was B, the 21st of December 2000. So HG is up 1-0. Dave, you better.
We're keeping score, are we? Okay, good. All right.
I was already out partying on the 20th at the thought of it, so I was just keeping going.
Do you regret it now, though, Dave? Do you wish that Sugar was still in charge?
Oh, I hated Alan Sugar.
Carlos kick a ball. We'd have 11 of those, but okay. Next question, Shan. Go for it.
Okay. On what day did we sign Portsmouth star Peter Crouch? Was it A, 26th of July 2009, B, 27th of July 2009, C, 30th of August 2009, or D, the 27th of July 2008?
All right, I'll guess first. I don't think it was 2008, and I don't think it was the end of the window. It might have been. Actually, I will. I'll go for C. I'll say it was the end of the window, 2009.
Okay, so I know this is a rare example of us doing our business early, which I'm going B.
And the answer is C, the 27th of July 2009. It's still HG1, Dave O'Neill. On to the
Dearie
next
me.
question. In what league position did Spurs finish in the 04-05 season? Was it A, 8th, B, 9th, C, 10th, or D, 11th?
I will guess it's the pleat season. We were rubbish. I'll say 11th.
Davo?
I think it was the Santini-Yol season, so I'm going to go 8th.
Oh, it was the Santini-Yol season. I'm an idiot. Yeah, it was.
Are you locking in your answers?
8th, A.
Now Dave's giving me more information. Can I switch to A?
No.
You can switch to A. Final answer?
Yeah.
The answer is C.
Oh,
9th.
Jesus.
It's still HG1.
hang on a second. Go back a slide, Shan. Yeah, C is 10th on here, and now you've got the answer of C being 9th.
The answer is 9th. That's just where I copied and pasted it from the transfer. That might happen on a few slides, but the answer is the answer is not C, all right?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. What teams did Spurs beat in the 07-08 Carling Cup run? Was it A, Middlesbrough, Blackpool, Man City, Arsenal and Chelsea? B, Wolves, Blackpool, Burnley, Arsenal and Chelsea? C, Middlesbrough, Burnley, Man City, Arsenal and Chelsea? Or D, Blackpool, Sunderland, Man City, Arsenal and Chelsea?
That is hard.
I wasn't going to make it easy for you, was I?
I've narrowed it down to 3. It wasn't B. I'll give you that, Dave. It wasn't B. Although that might come out for the answer as the right one. I remember the Man City game, so that's why I know it's not B. And obviously Arsenal-Chelsea matches, so it's just... Oh, boy. All right. I think I'm going to have a guess. Yeah, Bob Spurs narrowed it down to 4. Yeah, good work, Bob. Good work, Bob. All right, I'm going to guess A.
Dave-O?
Right, I have not got a clue, and tactically I should go A, shouldn't I? Because if we lose together, we lose together. But let's not kill ourselves on this. I'm going to go C.
I will say the reason why I think it's A is because we played Burnley in the semi-finals of 09 when Pav scored, and I don't remember us playing there twice in 2 seasons. Maybe we did, but I don't remember that.
Go. I could be going 2-0 down here.
I'm going A.
So you've locked your final answers in, and it is A. HG2, Dave O'Neill. On to the next one. In 2008, Hokey Pokey sacked Juan de Barros and replaced him with Harry Redknapp. How much did Spurs pay Portsmouth in compensation? Was it A, 4.5 million, B, 4 million, C, 5.5 million, D, 5 million?
Go on, Dave, you go first.
Well, because it's hokey cokey and there's been a negotiation, it's never going to be a round number. It will be a halfway decimal place because it's hokey cokey in this negotiation. So I'm going A.
All right. I disagree with that completely. I'm going with D.
Oh, final answers?
Yep.
The answer is D! 5 million.
Wow.
HG3, Dave O'Neill. Wow. And that is the end of the quiz.
Oh, okay.
Well done, HG.
That's like a penalty shootout. I wiped the floor with you. 5 questions, 3-0, boom.
Dave-O, you didn't get any of the naughties questions right. What's going on?
I'm going to get on social media and abuse myself online for my poor performance.
Congratulations for the win. There we go.
Yeah.
HG, I mean, I haven't got a prize for you, but You've got
No,
bragging
and-
rights
and-
over Dave until the next one. So
And I didn't cheat. The last quiz I did on here, I did cheat. No, and it wasn't one of ours, and I shouldn't have done it. And I apologise to anyone from We Are Tottenham TV for cheating on their quiz. But I only cheated on the rematch. We beat them fair and square the first time.
And on the
But
subject
yeah.
of apologies, can I just apologise to Irish Hotspur and his YouTube channel? Because until this week, I didn't realise his actual name was David Harris, right? And we had him on the show before. There was never a discussion about what his real name or my real name was. So people started talking about David Harris, and went onto his show, I just watched it, and he starts calling himself the Harris Army and David Harris. And I just thought he was just taking the piss out of me for some reason. How dare someone have the same name as me? So apologies to Irish Hotspur, but I did have the name first.
do you know I actually work with someone called David Harris as well? So when I was going to send you the run sheet, Dave, I typed David Harris. I was like, no, I don't want to send him. He's a West Ham fan, so I definitely don't want to send him my run sheet. And then I remembered I had you save as Dave Cheese, so that made it a bit
that's
easier.
nice.
Dave Cheese, yeah. So there you go. I mean, HG is quiz champion on the Shan Show Naughties edition. Davo, when we do the 90s one, I'm hoping you'll come back with a vengeance. I'd love to have you on the Shan Show again, because obviously this is how you present a quiz caller.
Yeah, I'd love to do the 90s. Obviously, I'd have to wear my Oasis t-shirt again, and maybe I'll get my green Parker on as well.
Yeah, stick on Oasis Nebworth the movie in the background, and
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what? I watched a cracking 90s movie last night in Hocus Pocus. What a classic. What a classic that is. HG, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on the Shan Show. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. I hope you like the. It's my daughter's artwork behind me over here, but nothing to do with me. But a slightly different view this time. So thanks for having me on.
I mean, that artwork is genius. I'm sure it's a lot better than Caller could do. So yeah. And everyone in the comments, thank you for joining us tonight for our naughty special. I hope you enjoyed a therapy session, some nostalgia, and obviously the best quizzes on YouTube. Thank you for watching. And until Friday, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on,
Dave.
you Spurs.